Put on this. Welcome to the Inland Valley Storytellers. My name is John St. Clair, and I am your Zoom host. And I also happen to be the first teller tonight. So, and we just had Elizabeth join us too. Okay, so I'm going to put this on a chair, and then I'm going to stand up and tell my story. And some of you have heard this, but I'm really trying to get this particular story into my long-term memory. So I've been telling it a lot lately, and I want to continue doing that.
Where are you going to tell it long term?
And
Is it here, or do you want me to pull a chair over? Yeah. Where are you going to tell it long term?
oh, I just want it in my long-term memory.
Yep. I can pull a chair out. Okay. So it's not, you're not lost behind that.
Yeah. So we're rearranging chairs here.
Not the first time because we were late. Sorry. We're glad.
So adjust this.
We're going to introduce ourselves.
Oh, that's right. We have a new person here. Do you want to introduce yourself to everybody?
Oh, hi, my name's Lori,
And where are you from?
Ontario.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you came with Jane, right?
Yeah.
Welcome, Lori. So, and well, so everybody else knows each other, but let's go around and tell Lori
Who we are?
your name.
I'm fine. Two hands, thank you.
Okay. So the story I'm going to tell, I actually told at the spring concert. So those of you who were there got to hear it. It's an Egyptian folktale called The Blue Hippopotamus. Long time ago, in the land of the pharaohs, there lived a beautiful Egyptian princess, but she was not happy. Her father was known to be cruel and harsh, and her brothers and sisters were only concerned about who was going to be the heir to the throne. And her mother, who she loved dearly, died when she was a young girl. So the princess decided that she wanted to get away from the palace. She wanted to go somewhere where she could be herself as a person, not just as a princess, daughter of the pharaoh. She wanted to meet someone who would love her for who she was on the inside, not for all the glamour of the palace. And so she decided she was going to run away. And when she was 15 years old, one night, she had made arrangements to have a barge on the Nile River, well stocked, waiting for her. And with the help of a couple of trusted servants, she gathered important belongings and snuck out of the palace, snuck down to the river, got on the barge, and took off up the Nile River. And they sailed for quite a while. Going up the Nile, it didn't go real fast because they were going upstream. So it took them several weeks. They came to the first cataract, which is a series of small waterfalls. And off to the side, there was kind of a pool area, not in the swift current. and there was an island. And so the barge went over to the island. There was nobody living on it. And the princess decided that was where she was going to live. And so they unloaded everything off the barge. And with the help of the servants, they built a little house to live in on the island. And she was happy, but not as happy as she thought she would be. Because, see, it turns out that the island was too remote, and very few people, very few boats came by, and the boats could go up beyond the first cataract, but if they were small enough. But very few boats came up that far, and nobody ever stopped at the island. So she was totally isolated. How was she going to find someone to love that would accept her for who she was, a person on the inside? But there was one thing she really did like doing, and that was on the one side of the island, there was a swimming, like a swimming pool, a clear water pool that she could swim in, and she loved to swim. And there was a nice rock she could lay out on and sun herself. And she went there every day. Unbeknownst to her, there was someone, or should I say something, watching. It was a very large, humongous hippopotamus. And the hippopotamus was hiding amongst the reeds, and his whole body was submerged. Only his ears and eyes were above the water. And the hippopotamus would come every day to watch the princess swim and sun herself on the rock. And every day he fell more and more in love with the princess. I know, that's pretty ridiculous. A hippopotamus falling in love with an Egyptian princess. And the hippopotamus realized this. He realized it was ridiculous, but he couldn't help himself. Every day he would go and watch the princess swim and sun herself, and every day he fell more and more in love with her. Well, one day the hippopotamus was watching the princess, and two herons came flying into the reeds to do some fishing. And one of the herons said to the other, Did you hear about the magician? And the other heron said, What magician? Oh, the magician that lives in a cave past the third cataract. No, I haven't heard of him. What's so special about this magician? Well, this magician grants wishes. And that caught the interest of the hippopotamus. Grants wishes. So he decided to move a little closer to maybe hear even better and not miss anything. But as soon as he started moving his large body in amongst the reeds, it scared away all the fish, and the heron flew away. Well, the hippopotamus thought he had heard evil. There's a magician that lives in a cave above the third cataract or waterfall, and he grants wishes. And the hippopotamus wondered, could he grant me a wish to have me turn into a handsome young man the princess could fall in love with? That would be wonderful. And he decided it was worth the risk. Now he knew it's going to be a long journey. He'd have to go past the first waterfall, the second waterfall, the third waterfall. And he wanted to go anyway. So it took him a long time, weeks. And he finally made it up past the third waterfall. And sure enough, off to the left, there was a cave, the side of the hill there. And he decided to just wait in the water and watch. Well, he saw a giraffe walk into the cave. And about 10 minutes later, a butterfly flew out. And he, ooh, this must be the place. So he climbed out of the water, walked up to the cave, walked into the cave, and it took him a while for his eyes to adjust. There was a man sitting on a rug on the ground with a lamp next to him to give him light. And he was sewing in crocodile teeth into a hanging, a decorative hanging. And the hippopotamus said, excuse me, sir, are you a magician? And the magician said, yes, yes, I'm a magician. What can I do for you? Well, said the hippopotamus, I've traveled a long way. Oh, yeah, 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 said the magician. Get to it, get to it. What do you want? Well, I want you to turn me into a handsome young man that the Egyptian princess can fall in love with. She lives on an island below the first waterfall, and I want her to fall in love with me. Oh, no, 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 said the magician. Can't do that, can't do that. Too messy. Can't change humans into animals or animals into humans. Too messy, can't do it. Well, the hippopotamus was stunned, and his eyes began to well up with tears, and the tears poured down and splattered on the cave floor. And the magician said, oh, don't get all weepy cryy on me. I said I couldn't change you into a young man the princess could fall in love with, but I could change you into something the princess could love. Something, said the hippopotamus. What do you mean, something? Well, let's see. Humans love gold. I could change you into something gold that the princess would love. No, 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 said the hippopotamus. If she loved gold, she would have stayed in the palace. There was plenty of gold there. Good point, said the magician. Let me see. Oh, humans love to eat. I could make you into a beautiful cake. No, 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 said the hippo. And she would eat me? No, 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 that isn't what I want. Well, said the magician, you come up with an idea. So the hippo thought, and he said, well, I like my shape. There's just too much of me. I'm way too big for her. Can you make me into a smaller version of myself? Well, yes, said the magician. I could shrink you down and make you into a clay hippopotamus. And the hippo said, and maybe make it an attractive color? Yes, yes, said the magician. I could make you into a blue ceramic hippopotamus. Okay, said the hippo. What if she doesn't love me? Well, you won't find that out till you get there, will you? But if it turns out she doesn't love you, you can use your second wish. What second wish, said the hippo? Oh, I always give two wishes. The second wish is so you can turn back into what you started with if the first wish didn't work out. You can actually use that second wish for anything, but usually you want to save it just in case it doesn't work out the way you thought it would with the first wish. Well, said the hippo, how am I going to get to her? Oh, I'll take care of that, said the magician. There's a merchant that comes by here, and I make these artsy kind of things that I trade with him to get my food and supplies, and he takes them and he sells them along the Nile River as he goes along. He's coming by soon. I'll give him the ceramic hippopotamus and tell him to give it to the princess as a gift. Well, thought the hippo, what have I got to lose? If it doesn't work out, I will just wish to return to my pool by the river and be a hippopotamus again. So he said, that's what I want you to do. Go ahead and do it. Fine, said the magician. And he said a few magic words, waved his wand, and the hippo began to shrink and shrink and shrink until he became a blue ceramic hippopotamus that you could hold in your hands. And so he wrapped up the blue hippo in a cloth. And I just remembered something I forgot to mention. Another question the hippo had was, when I'm a blue ceramic hippopotamus, will I have my own consciousness? And the magician said, you will. You will be able to hear what she says and feel what you feel. You just won't be able to talk with her, but you will have your own consciousness. So sure enough, the next day, the merchant came and the magician gave the blue hippo to the merchant, who headed down the Nile, and after a few days, it goes faster when you're going downstream. He stopped by the island and he showed the princess the blue hippo, and she said, "Oh, it's beautiful. I must have it. How much does it cost?" And he said, "Oh, no, it doesn't cost anything. It's a gift from the magician who lives up the river." "Oh, thank you," she said. And she really liked that blue hippo. And she took him wherever she went. She took him to the swimming area, set him on the rock, and he could watch her swim around. She took him to meals with her, set him on the table, and he would watch her eat. But the best part of all was the night. Every night, the princess, before she went to sleep, would set the hippopotamus on her nightstand and talk to him and tell him stories and sing songs to him. The stories and songs that she had learned from her mother when she was a little girl. And then, when she was ready to go to sleep, she'd lean over, kiss the hippo on top of his head, and then go to sleep. And that hippo, he felt so good. If he had had a real heart, it would have been pounding so hard it would have burst the ceramic. And things were turning out really well. But as with most physical things with humans, after a while, she stopped paying as much attention. And she stopped taking him with her to various places and just left him on the nightstand. And she stopped telling him stories and singing him songs. And the hippo was thinking maybe he had made a mistake and maybe he needed to use that second wish to return to his previous life. And he decided that that night, while she was asleep, he would use his second wish. But when she came into the bedroom, she was crying. Tears were pouring down her face. And she looked at the hippo. She picked him up and said, "You are so lucky you don't have a heart that can break like my heart has broken. I am so lonely here. All I wanted was to get away from the palace so I could meet someone I could love and who could love me as a person for what I am on the inside. And I don't see anybody here. Nobody ever comes by here. You are so, so lucky." And she kissed him on the forehead, put him down, and cried herself to sleep. Well, the hippo thought and thought and felt so sorry for the princess. And he wanted to do something now. And then it occurred to him he could. So he used his second wish not to return to his former form, but he used his second wish to help her. He said, "I wish that a handsome young man on a boat would come here to this island and he would fall in love with the princess and she would fall in love with him and they would be happy together." And guess what? That magician's magic was pretty strong, because the next day a boat did stop by with a handsome young man, and he was immediately enthralled with the princess and she with him, and they talked and she invited him to spend the night, and they eventually got married. They lived together. And so the poor ceramic hippopotamus that was taken from the nightstand and put up on a high shelf where all the long forgotten things from the past of the princess were stored. And he didn't have any interaction anymore with her. And he thought, "I've made a huge mistake. I'm stuck here forever." Well, one day, a maid came and she was cleaning and she was dusting the shelves, and she accidentally knocked the hippopotamus off of that shelf, and the ceramic hit the floor and cracked into pieces, and poof, just like that, suddenly the hippo was back as a hippo in the magician's cave looking at the magician. "Aha," said the magician. "I bet you weren't expecting this to happen." I sent that clumsy maid in there to break you out of that spell. And I have to admit to you, I wasn't totally honest when I said I couldn't change an animal into a human. I can if the animal shows some good human quality. In all my years of granting wishes, I have never had anybody use their second wish to help someone else. You used your second wish not to get you out of an uncomfortable position, but to help out someone you loved. And that is a good human quality. And therefore, Mr. Hippo, I am going to change you into human form that the princess can love. And he said a few magic words before the hippo could say anything, waved his wand, and there was nothing for him. But when the hippo woke up, he wasn't a hippo. He was a baby held in the arms of the Egyptian princess. And I don't think she realized that that baby she was holding used to be the blue hippo that she enjoyed a few years before. But if she had realized, I think she would have loved him even more. That's the blue hippopotamus. Okay, now, since we have it on Spotlight here, do you have a story? And then Barbie, you can go after him, and then we'll go to the Zoom people.
Good evening. I see one unfamiliar face. I am Ron Chick. I live in Riverside. I go where there is story and I tell stories wherever I can tie an audience down. Hey, last month I told the story of a shape-shifting troll. And it had a little creepy in it, and I've been working on that tale, and I do intend to use it at Celebration this year. So if anybody has any place for an audience to hear it again, I'd love to. However, I told John that I had originally come up with my first troll story at a workshop years ago and hadn't told it in a long time. And so I promised I would tell it tonight the tale of the Three Billy Goats Gruff revised. This is the tale of Millie the goat. Life as a goat is not terribly difficult. On our side of the river, there is dry grass and hills and bushes, and we can always get by. On the other side of the river, though, the valley opens up and is lusher and full of green things, but we have a problem. The bridge across the river is controlled by a troll. Everybody human who needs to go across the bridge offers a penny in exchange. And if they had cargo, they'd offer more. Goats don't have money. The only times we could get across the bridge is if we could follow along between a pair of wagons driven by humans, which happened sometimes, but nowhere near enough to feed a healthy, happy goat. I had three brothers, all named Billy. Billy goats. This is the way things go. One day, my littlest brother said, I'm going to cross the river. And I said, you can't do that without following a human. I said, you'll get in trouble. He says, well, I'm not afraid of that troll. It is my belief that my three brothers haven't a lick of sense because they spend all of their time banging their heads into things. And I said, well, if you're going to do that, you're going to have trouble with the troll. I said, I'm not afraid of troll. Not afraid of the troll at all. Well, maybe you should be, but here's what you do. Wait until it's about midday, nice and warm out. Troll will be a little lazy. Go across the bridge, and if he challenges you, say, well, you don't want to eat me. I'm young and scrawny. Hey, I haven't had a chance to put any fat on my body at all. You should wait for my older brother. He'll be along soon, and you can eat him. And the troll thought, okay. That is when I crossed quietly behind my noisy little brother and went to the other side of the bridge. The troll was out sunning himself in the middle of the bridge. So I snuck down and went down by the waterside and found the entrance into his cave and looked inside, thinking I might learn something of value. And I did. You see, you probably don't know, but trolls are essentially greedy. Trolls will gather anything at all of even the remotest value and cram it in. And this one had lived there for a long, long, long time and had stacks of coins and money and things that he had bartered for trips across the river over the years. I thought, I know what to do. Well, sure enough, the next day my middle brother said he was going to go across, and I told him what to say. No, you don't want to eat me. My older brother belonged just a little after me, and you should wait for him. He's bigger and tastier than I would be. And so the middle goat went across the bridge, and his sister followed quietly behind him and began to wait. It wasn't that long before the big billy goat gruff, they looked on his side of the dry hills and into the lush valley where he could see his two brothers enjoying fresh green grass and decided, I'm going to cross the bridge. Millie fell in beside him and whispered in his ear, and then followed carefully behind. As he plumped across the bridge, the great troll burst out and said, you have to pay me or I will eat you up. I don't know about that. I have powerful horns and strong legs. You had best watch out. The troll started to laugh, but from behind him came a laughter. Look at what I got, look at what I got. And Millie Goat stood out with a bucket full of gold that she had gathered from his treasure. I'm going to give this to everybody. The troll was immediately furious and frozen and didn't know what to do. And that was Big Billy Goat's big chance. The troll turned away. The Billy Goat charged. He knocked him into the river. And he went across the river to enjoy lunch. Millie waited, though. Waited for the troll to come back in sight from downriver and said, this is what's going to happen. I'll tell the whole world you have all that treasure there, or you can just let my brothers and I come and go across the bridge whenever we want for the rest of our lives. The troll may be greedy, but he was not a fool. So for the rest of their lives, every day, the three billy goats and their Millie sister crossed the bridge, ate the lush grass, and they grew fatter and happier every year. And if nothing else has happened, they're doing it yet.
Okay, Barbara, you want to tell yours? Make sure your body is showing on the screen.
Hey, John, this is Angela talking, and we really couldn't see your face. Barbara, you're cut off above your nose.
And what?
Barbara was cut off. Yeah, now I can see your top of your head and yours too, John.
You can
Yeah.
you see this now?
I can now. Yeah.
We'll talk louder.
So this is a true story. I went out of my house to go to work as usual. And as I went out the front door, I had a whiff of an odor that I knew what it was, but I couldn't find out where the odor came from. I looked all around and my dog was nowhere nearby. It happened day after day, in and out of the house. I went through the door and I couldn't figure out where that smell was coming from. It was awful. And then one day I went out and it was raining. And so I reached in and I got my raincoat and I took it with me. And at work, it was no longer raining. So I left my raincoat in the car and went to work. And when I came out of work, went back to my car, I was 5 car lengths away when I realized what the smell was. And it was in my car, in my raincoat, in the pocket, little bag of you know what. That's the story. It's a short one, but it was painful.
Yeah, so do you have a story, Jane? Okay, well, okay, we'll do Jane before we go to the other people.
This is another true story. It's very short. I have a Facebook site for clutter busters. And so this woman posted a picture of something, wanting to know what it was. And it was a piece of wood with a big rounded edge, kind of shaped like a mushroom. And she posted and said, does anybody know what the heck this is? So people started writing in, and everybody was saying it's a darning mushroom. And so one lady writes in and she says, when I married my husband, his mother gave me this big bag of socks that needed darning. And I didn't have one of those. So I got an old burnt out light bulb and I used it to darn my socks. And a week ago, I went in and I cleaned out my big sewing basket and I threw that darn thing away. Now, when I have old socks that have holes in them, I just throw them in the darn trash.
Okay. So now we go to the Zoom people. I think no one else here has a story, right? Okay. So who wants to be next?
I'm gonna go get another chair.
Nick's raising his hand. All right, so let me put Nick in the spotlight. There we go. And I'm going to turn this around so we can see you, Nick.
All right. Well, like John, I was going back to refresh my memory on stories that I hadn't told in a long time. And there was one from Syria that always struck me as odd, but oddly enough, the political news of the last couple of weeks is what brought it to mind. You see, there were two friends who did a great deal together, even though they were not the best of friends, but they shared tastes and they shared conversation. And at one point, they even decided to share a trip together. They each brought a bag of food and a flask of water, and they set out on the road. Well, because of their personalities, one of them had the nickname of Abu Khair, and the other one the nickname of Abu Shar. Now, Abu Khair basically means child of good, and Abu Shar basically means child of evil. And this said a lot about their personalities. But as they traveled, Abu Shar said, there's no reason we need to open both bags of food at the same time. That way they'll both get stale at the same time. Why don't we use up one bag of food first and then the other bag? And Abu Khair said, that's a good idea. At which point Abu Shar said, fine, let's use your bag of food first and your flask of water, and then we'll use mine. Well, they shared some of the food from Abu Khair's bag and some of the water from Abu Khair's flask, and so on until both were empty. And Abu Khair said, all right, so let's use yours now. And Abu Shar said, yeah, I changed my mind. You changed your mind, but we've used my food and water. And Abu Shar said, oh, it's too bad you didn't bring that up sooner. We could have changed the plan and you'd still have some now, wouldn't you? Well, Abu Khair said, I don't know if I want to travel together anymore. And Abu Shar said, fine, I'll stay on the road here. You can climb up into the hills there. I'm sure you'll find some food and water and have a different path. Well, as it happened, the place where Abu Khair left the road and went up into the hills led him to something very interesting. For at a place that you couldn't see from the road below, there was a clearing with fine running water and a beautiful tree of ripe figs. And so he sat down there to eat and to drink and to rest against the trunk of the tree. Well, above him in the fig tree, 3 birds arrived, and much to his surprise, the birds began to talk. And one of them said, you know, that blind bootmaker that I've been watching, he still hasn't found the gold that's buried under where his shoe last is. Now, for those of you who've never been to a bootmaker, a shoe last is the foot-shaped form around which you make your shoes and boots. And, well, the second bird laughed and said, that's nothing. The people in Damascus are still running short of water, even though there's a spring buried right under the city gates that would provide them with huge amounts. And the third one just laughed and laughed and laughed and said, that's nothing. The Sultan's daughter is still sick, and the Sultan has brought in doctors and began hanging them if they don't cure his daughter, and none of them know that she's really under a curse. The only way to lift the curse is for the Sultan to sacrifice his own favorite hunting dog and let her taste some of its flesh. Well, the birds laughed and laughed and laughed, and Abu Khair had the basic idea that these were not normal birds. First, their laughter was just a little too creepy for him, and also they knew things that birds could not know, but perhaps an evil ifrit, a spirit who could change into the form of a bird, might know. And he knew that an ifrit was a terrible, terrible creature, and so he remained very quiet until these birds flew away. He stored up water in his flask, and he put figs into his food pouch that had been emptied on the trip, and continued on his way until he got down to the next town, and sure enough, there was a blind shoe and boot maker there. Well, he thought, let me see if this story could possibly be true. And so he unstitched one of his own shoes and went to this maker of shoes and said, can you do repairs as well as make boots and shoes? And the man said, yes, of course I can. Well, how much would it cost for you to repair my shoe? Oh, only a small copper piece. This is simple. Well, in that case, let me sit down here and you can work on it. And so he worked on it, fixed the shoe, and Abu Khair looked and saw that under where the man's shoe last was, there was a floor that looked like it could have something under it. And so he left. But again, he unstitched his shoe and went back and said, oh, look, the stitching was much too loose. I'll pay you 2 coins if you can stitch it more closely this time. Please do that. And so, being paid again, the shoemaker fixed it. And Abu Khair said, I have money. Could you send someone to buy food and bring it back here? I'm famished and I don't know where the best food is. And so the shoemaker's wife went out with the coins that Abu Khair provided and came back with some very good food. He enjoyed it, shared it with the shoemaker and his wife, and they talked, and he learned that the shoemaker had been blind for a very long time, but had learned his trade so well that he could do it without the benefit of his sight. But they were still not rich. He said, I've enjoyed this conversation so much. Could I come back tomorrow and talk to you again? And the shoemaker said, yes, of course, as long as I have time to do my work. And so Abu Khair went out, found a place to stay, and came back the next day. And again, they talked, but at the end, Abu Khair went out and waited until the shoemaker and his wife had fallen asleep, and carefully went back in and lifted up the flooring under the shoe last, and there were bags of money under there. He pulled out just a few coins and put it back. And the next day when he came back, I have more money and we have a reason to celebrate. Could you send your wife out to get the finest food from someplace nearby, someplace that provides nice food, maybe lamb and rice and whatever else she thinks fitting? Well, the shoemaker was very surprised, but he sent his wife off with the coins that Abu Khair provided. She brought back lamb and rice and all of the fixings, and they had a nice meal. And Abu Khair finally said, "You're not going to believe this, but you actually have a lot of money here." "What? What do you mean I have a lot of money?" "Well, this is difficult to explain, but a bird told me that you really were rich and didn't know it. And that's because the money is under the floor, under your shoe last. Here, let me help you move it." And they opened up the floor, and the shoemaker's wife was stunned at how much money there was. And the shoemaker said, "Ah, you have saved me. When two men go hunting, they share the catch. Here, we should share the money. Take half with you when you leave." And Abu Khair said, "No, only a tiny bit." And so it was that he filled a small pouch with money, enough to get him to Damascus and beyond, and left the rest with the shoemaker. And he and his wife were so happy that they thanked Abu Khair profusely, and he went on his way. Well, he made it to Damascus, and there he walked up to someone in the marketplace and said, "I'm very thirsty. How can I get a cup of water?" And the person he asked laughed in his face and said, "We have to pay for every drop of water, and you expect me to guide you to water you can have for free? Well, no, I mean, you have water here, don't you know?" "What do you mean we have water here?" "Well, if you take me to someone in a position who can help, I can guide you to water here in the city." Well, that got the attention not only of the person he was talking to, but everyone else nearby in the marketplace. And they dragged him rather forcefully to the judge in the city. And he explained that he had heard that there was secretly a well of water under the city gate that perhaps people had forgotten about. So it was that men came out with pickaxes and shovels, and they dug and dug, and water spouted into the air. They would need a new city gate, but now they had water. And the people wanted to richly reward Abu Khair, and he said, "No, just a little bit of money. I have someone that I need to talk to, and I'm in a hurry. I can only take what I can carry." And so they gave him money and food and water and sent him on his way. Well, he made it to the city where there was a king who had a daughter who was very ill. And he could tell that it was the right city because there were men in the garb of doctors, rather dead, hanging from the city walls, for they had failed to heal the princess. And he went in and announced himself to the guards at the palace and said, "I may be able to cure the princess. Could I talk to the king?" And the guard said, "On your own head be it." But they took him into the king. And the king looked at Abu Khair and said, "You don't look like a doctor." And he said, "It's because I'm not, but I've learned a secret. Your daughter is not ill. She is under a curse. Lifting that curse will cost you dearly." And the king said, "You can take all the money you want as long as she's healed." And Abu Khair said, "No, not in money. It will be at the cost of your favorite hunting dog, for only a bite of its flesh can heal the princess." Well, the king was stunned. "What evil thing put such a curse on my daughter?" And Abu Khair said, I think it could have been a Ifrit, but I do not know for sure. They simply knew about it. And so the king had his favorite hunting dog brought to him and patted it on the head and gave it to his executioner and said, "Kill this dog swiftly and give its flesh to my cook, for my daughter must be saved." And he could see the pain on the king's face, but he could see that that was the price of answering the curse. So the executioner, for once, executed someone who was not a human being and executed a dog and took the dog to the cook, and the cook prepared some of its flesh. And as soon as the princess ate a bite of the dog's flesh, she recovered as if she'd never been sick at all. And the king said, "This is truly amazing. And if my daughter will have you, you will have her hand in marriage as well as anything I can possibly give you." Well, it took a while for the princess to fall in love, but Abu Khair said, "I would gladly stay here and learn whether she does love me, but in the meantime, would you be so kind as to build a bakery where men can be fed if they have no money? And that would be the pay I would take in money for curing your daughter." Well, the king said, of course, and opened a bakery. Now, you probably wonder what had happened to Abu Shar during all of this. He had wandered along the road and gone to work harvesting in the farms. And of course, being him, he wasted all of his money, and so he was broke and hungry by the time he got to that same city. And he walked up and said, "Where can I get work or food?" And the man laughed at him and said, "Well, food is easy. You go to the bakery over there. They'll give you food even if you have no money." And Abu Shar went to the bakery, and in an upper window, he saw his old friend Abu Khair. "Abu Khair, is this your bakery?" "Well, I'm responsible for it." "Come down here and tell me about it." And he came down and told Abu Shar what had happened to him. Abu Shar said, "You mean to tell me you left a place that Ifrit were guarding? There must have been their treasure there, and you left it behind?" And Abu Khair said, but that's dangerous. And Abu Shar said, "I'm going back and find the treasure you left behind." And so he went off, followed the trail back, went up and found a dying fig tree and a pool of water that barely had any water left in it. And that was when the birds approached. They came back and perched in the tree and looked down at Abu Shar and said, "Who are you and why do you come here?" "Well, I heard that this was a very nice place and that you had a beautiful fig tree here." "We did, until all of our work was undone, for we drew power from the deeds we had done, power that kept this place beautiful and magical." "Well, maybe it was because my friend came here and undid the deeds." "Your friend? Who is your friend?" "His name is Abu Khair." "And what is your name?" "My name is they call me Abu Shar." "Well, Abu Shar, your friend did us evil, and since your name suggests that you should be the recipient of our gifts, we shall do harm to you in its place. Because our deeds have been undone, now your life shall be undone." And so it was that the Ifrit ended the days of Abu Shar. But Abu Khair remained in the city with the king and the princess, and she did grow to love him. And so it was that they married and they lived happily after, but so did the people of that city, for the poorest among them could have bread to eat when they had nothing else.
Thank you, Nick. Thank you. That was great. Okay, who else wants to tell a story? Raise your hand if you I don't see anybody. That's it? No other stories? Okay, I guess Ron Evans is no longer with us.
He had said he had trouble with his sound.
Oh, okay. Well, we're having trouble with sound here too because we switched because of the noise from the restaurant next door because they were having that trivia contest on Tuesdays. Well, guess what they're doing today? They have a live band.
Oh, no.
Can you hear it?
No.
No.
We can. Yeah, we can. It makes it hard for us to hear you guys. So I may stop by and see if this is a regular thing on Wednesday. That was so much work to get the date changed.
Yeah, thank you for doing that work. This is Angela.
Yeah,
Well, it
but
actually makes it easier for me because a bunch of my other commitments got changed around this month also.
yeah. And well, the second Tuesday was also the regular meeting of the eco tellers
Oh,
with Fran Stahl,
uh-huh,
which
uh-huh.
Yeah.
I had wanted to participate in but never could.
Yeah. So the change, even if there's noise on some nights, it'll probably be worth it.
Yeah, well, we'll see. If it's every Wednesday, it's not going to be worth it.
Yeah.
Limited.
Yeah.
Tuesdays were tough on me because I always had to choose between singing with the master chorale or getting over to storytelling. This year I couldn't have afforded to miss a single rehearsal.
Yeah, so
It's tough.
so switching from Tuesday made Ron Chick able to attend. That was nice.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And next month, the fourth Wednesday is the night before Thanksgiving.
No, that'll be October, or that'll be November. October is still okay.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
You mean Halloween?
No, we're still in September. I was thinking we were
Oh.
in October.
Okay.
Okay, well,
But yeah, I think we should be okay in October. And yes, it's the night before Thanksgiving. I have stuff to do starting like the daytime in Thanksgiving and through that weekend, but the Wednesday I should be okay anyway.
well, we'll see. We don't do anything special with Thanksgiving anymore.
Mhm.
But
We have celebration that Saturday night, the 23rd.
Well,
Yeah.
that's actually before Thanksgiving this year.
November 11th.
Is it the fourth Wednesday?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
yeah, the
Oh, right.
swap,
Okay, right.
it'll be after celebration, actually.
Right. Okay. Right.
You know what date celebration?
It's Saturday before Thanksgiving.
It's the 23rd of November.
And then we have the online one that's a couple of days before that, right?
What's that? Yeah, the Zoom joint celebration is on the Thursday before the Saturday. So
Yeah.
That's Thanksgiving. Oh, that's right. It's the week
it's
before.
the week
Got it.
before Thanksgiving.
Right. Okay.
All right. Well, if there's no more stories, do you have any announcements, Angela, or you, Nick?
Uh, I'm gonna be in Jonesboro next week for the national festival. I'm gonna MC at the festival this year, so I'm looking forward to that. The other thing is the NSN conference is going to be in Georgia next year, and we are looking for people to be on the conference committee. I don't know if that's of interest to anybody here. That would mean one of the things that would mean is you could be a reader of proposals for the Youth Educator Storytelling Group. I'm the chair of that group. I'm looking for some other people to be readers of the proposals. So you could reach out to me if you're interested in that.
So is it
The
gonna be
pro-
in Atlanta?
It's in Atlanta next year in July.
It's Atlanta in July.
Yeah. And the proposal deadline is coming up. It's within a week or so. And then the conference group will be looking for people to read and choose workshops and things for the conference. So if you have interest in that, I'd love to hear from you. So
I'm booked.
Yeah, this time of year is bad for me to do anything like that, unfortunately.
mm-hmm.
I have
Okay.
2 celebrations to work on, and I have a high school reunion later this month. Oh my gosh. And 2 television. Yeah, the joint. Haven't you been getting the emails I've been sending?
I do,
Doesn't
but
necessarily mean it gets into my calendar. I was just adding it in.
Okay.
Angela, how many
Yeah.
proposals do you usually get?
When for the yes group, we had about maybe 18.
Mhm.
So
And are they the proposals divided among a couple of readers, or
yes,
or does every reader read all of
no,
them? Okay.
we divvied them up last year. So, and
Okay.
we'll probably be reading in October and November.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, I might be able to help you with that because I've done that
okay.
for academic conferences and such.
Uh-huh.
So, okay.
That'd be great. Yeah, they'll be, people will be what they did last year was they divided up the proposals. I think they asked the people who were writing them if they would designate if it was for eco or youth educators or the presenters and producers or the storytelling and organizations. And they divided up those into 4 main groups. And then they sent them to us. It's in a Google form. So that's how they sent them to us to look at. That'd be great. Thanks.
Oh, you got 1 volunteer.
Yeah.
Yeah. They- So,
Okay.
So I have something kind of from between the meetings that I was going to tell you about because it was such a cool event. I don't know if I've ever told most of you, but I'm kind of a movie buff. And one of the things that I do is attend a movie festival that's over Labor Day weekend every year. And one of the interesting things about it is that it's basically honoring the creators who are still around and has been for years inviting the ones who are still around to come to the festival. And so this year, one of the things was we got to watch a movie along with one of the actresses from the movie. What made that unusual was that the movie came out in 1936.
Whoa.
Wow.
She was a child actress, and she'd been coming to this festival occasionally over the years. And she wasn't just in a couple of scenes to be cute or anything like that. No, she was a major character in the movie.
Oh.
Had a lot of lines, and she stole some scenes with actual acting as well as being cute. Cora Sue Collins was her name, and she's in her 90s. And this was the first time she had seen the movie in a real theater because as a kid, it's the kind of thing where, oh, that's not a movie you want to see. It's a grown-up love story. You're just an actress in it. It was her attitude of her parents. But it was just so cool that somebody seeing a movie 88 years after they had been in it
Wow.
was there in the audience with us. And one of the special guests was Stephanie Powers, from Girl from Uncle and Heart to Heart and all the
Yeah.
movies. And she was being given an award. She had to fly back from Africa to receive the award because she is actually the head of the William Holden Foundation, which does ecological work in East Africa. And that's where she had been before the conference or before the festival. So she flew back from there to get this award. And a couple of the other people who were there were kid and young adult actors in various things. One of whom was given an award last year for his work, George Shakiris, who was in West Side Story.
Hmm.
But we got to see one of his non-West Side Story movies last year. And this year he was there as a presenter because one of the people he'd acted with was there to receive an award. So there are things like that that happen at it. But it's a really cool event. It's not cheap but it's a Thursday through Monday film festival with lots and lots and lots of movies. And we got to see some newly restored things that were being worked on because Paramount, when they bought up a couple of smaller studios over the years, bought the rights to a bunch of older stuff. And so they actually owned the rights to a bunch of the old Roy Rogers movies. And so what made this unusual was the Roy Rogers movies had been edited down for television and edited badly because this was early days of television and they didn't think things through. Bear in mind that Roy Rogers was a singing cowboy.
Right.
So in order to shorten it for television, what do you think they took out?
Songs.
The songs.
Yeah.
And so we got to see the full-length version of one of his movies with the songs put back in and the film restored by the people at Paramount because the technology is up to restoring some of the older B movies and things like that that they inherited from Republic, one of the studios they acquired. So we got to see 2 or 3 of the things from Republic. We got to see some restored Laurel and Hardy stuff, things like that. And what I was leading up to is, how many of you have seen the Laurel and Hardy movie where they're carrying the piano up the flight of stairs?
Yeah, I think I've seen that.
That flight of stairs is a real flight of stairs in Los Angeles, and it is being named a historic site because of its place in movie history, and they're going to be celebrating it in mid-October. So unfortunately, I can't be there because I'm going to be a different event, but I believe it's the 3rd Saturday of October is actually when the dedication is of the stairs from that movie.
That would be the 19th of October.
Yes. So it's just one of those things where you don't expect a set of stairs to become a historic site.
Where are the stairs located?
They're in Los Angeles. It's one of those things, they're so famous you can actually look them up because they're on different movie maps and things because of the location.
Okay.
But I can send out the street address. I have to dig that up. I can send that to John to forward. But it's just one of those things, you don't think of the movie scenes being dedicated as historic sites, but some of them are so iconic that it's happened.
Yeah.
So those stairs are in Echo Park.
Yes.
Oh. Okay.
And they really
That's
do
great
look
to
like
know.
they did 100 years ago, so you can see them.
Wow.
Oh, that's neat.
What was the
Mhm.
name of the movie in which the child actress was now 90 and was there? What was the name of that movie?
I would have to look that up. My program book is in another room, but I can send that to you as well if you want, because it was
What
really
was-
cool. It was
What was her name?
Cora Sue Collins.
Oh,
I'd love to know what movie that was.
Well,
That'd be
she was
great.
actually in a lot of them, so that's one of the reasons I'm having trouble remembering. But I can send that because I've got it in the program book and would just have to look it up. But she was a child actress who she was kind of like a step down from Shirley Temple, but she was very good. And due to some other things, we actually learned an interesting story about Shirley Temple because there was a discussion of child actresses there. How do you think Shirley Temple learned dance routines when she was working with professional dancers?
I don't know.
This was the thing that freaked out Bill Robinson, Mr. Bojangles himself. She would listen to his tap routines
Wow,
and then be able to repeat them.
Whoa.
wow.
Listen,
She would learn the choreography of tap dance not by watching, but by
Mhm.
hearing the taps.
That is amazing.
Yeah,
She
I
was a,
can see how that would make some, that almost makes a little bit of sense.
he said it was the only dancer that he had ever met who could do that.
Mhm.
I mean, even though, yes, you could learn the things from the taps, but it's like he never met anyone else who actually could learn them that way. And
Yeah,
she was learning them quickly that way.
wow.
She would have the basics of it after hearing him do a tap routine once. She would be
That,
able to do the basics of it and then sort of close in on it.
yeah,
She repeated it if something didn't seem right when she was doing it. But she was
amazing.
learning it by the sound of the taps.
Mhm. Wow, good listener.
Amazing listener. I mean, and it's just, goes to show something about education because that was the way she could learn that particular thing. And it wasn't
Mhm.
how people were trying to teach her.
Right.
So she kind of had to break away from the standard ways of being taught.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
Well, thanks for sharing that. I think I'm going to stop the recording now.
Sure.
Let's see. Recording.